How we doing, everybody, and welcome to Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. We're here on this Wednesday. It's getting better in the weather, I guess. Getting a little warmer out there. A little bit warmer of a Wednesday here in the great state of Wisconsin. Lots to talk about today. Lots to get into. But first, got to see how we're doing. Austin, how we doing on this Wednesday?
It's hump day, Trage. It's my favorite time. Like I say it every time. You know, we're at the top of the hill, and we're starting to curve down now, getting close to the weekend. So, it's a good day. It's a good day to have a good day.
You know, I've always thought about this hill thing that you talk about, and I feel like you got it backwards. Wouldn't the weekend be the good part where you level out a little bit, and then the downhill you have to start climbing back up? You know, I don't know.
No, because beginning of the week, you wake up and you're like all tired and you don't want to do anything, so you're struggling. You're slow up the hill, but then once you get up over the hump, it's just fast down. It's just the weekend. That's the metaphor.
I feel it. I'm sorry. Sorry for questioning you. We're going to jump to Rogan now. Rogan, how we doing on this Wednesday? A great Wednesday in the great state of Wisconsin. Rogan, we're at you. How are you doing on this Wednesday?
Oh, hey guys. How's it going, boys? It's been good. I'm back. I think it took me 2 solid days, but I think I got over the depression that was that Packer game. And, speaking about humps, it can cheer any guy up. So I think I'm back, boys.
You know, I figured you were contemplating what to say. It took you a little bit to answer how you were doing on this Wednesday. I didn't know if you were doing okay, if you were still down and out. Didn't know what was going on there. So right away, I want to jump into it's Wednesday. We got to have our thoughts, right? We have our thoughts midweek. We have our thoughts of the day. So I'm going to go to Rogan right away. Rogan, what's your thought of the day? What have you been thinking about in sports right now?
Well, Trage, it's not really sports related, but I have to talk to you guys about this. Down here in Madison.
Remember, we're PG rated. We're PG.
No, we're good. It's all good.
Okay. I just have to
we're down here in Madison today, and the weather has been awful today. We started off with ice rain, then it moved to snow, and then it was back to ice. And I'm thinking we're trying to cross the road here, and there's just massive puddles of slush water, like right by this place where you enter onto the street, so like the sidewalk. And I'm thinking the engineer in me, even though I'm going for like poli-sci, but the engineer in me is thinking, why don't we put the drain grates right where you enter the street there, so the water drains out instead of having to walk through massive puddles of water? I mean, I don't know how we get this done, but that was my thought of the day there.
Personally, as an electrician, I hate engineers. I got to be honest with you, because when they design things, it's like they don't care about me on the back end. Have you ever looked at a motor and where you got to wire that thing? It's like I got to fit 9 wire nuts into a hole that I can barely fit my finger into. Like, that's engineers just get me every time. So it doesn't surprise me that they put the drain grates on the wrong side or in the wrong spot. It doesn't surprise me. They just do it, and they draw it up on a plan, and they're like, this will work. And then you get there, and it's like, no, this didn't work. This is far from working. So I agree. Engineers, some of them are okay. Rogan's going to be okay. But the flip side of it, some of them, man, just get out of here. So, Austin, after that engineering thought of the day, what is your thought for this Wednesday?
Yeah, my thought is actually of sports, because we're a sports podcast. And my thought is Jair Alexander's time with the Packers over? He posted something interesting on Instagram yesterday saying, and this is his words, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Lambeau, for 6 years. Thank you to those who showed love throughout my journey." What does that mean? I'm sure we'll get into this later when we talk about the Packers, but it's just a thought. I thought Jair was kind of a lock. I thought he wanted to stay in Green Bay. But after that, it's like, I don't know. It's he's kind of like thanking Green Bay for his time, and it's interesting. Definitely interesting.
Let's jump into the Packers right away. You're on the topic. Let's jump into the Packers. And, the Jair Alexander case, he kind of reminds me of Antonio Brown at times when I listen to him talk. Just seems like he's a little far out. You never know what you're going to get out of the guy. Just an interesting character. from everything that we heard, Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, from Jair Alexander a couple weeks ago, it was pointing towards Jair's coming back. We thought he was coming back. Now, flip the script, and now he posts something like this, and you can only take so much from social media, I guess, and, players go out there and they say what they want to say and this and that, but, I mean, that would just be an interesting flip to the script from what we thought, and I believe he's still underneath the contract. I think he's the highest paid cornerback in the league, as far as I know. So would surprise me if he wanted to leave Green Bay. I think Green Bay would have to be the one to get rid of him. But I'm looking at this Packers defense, and with the guys they had coming in there in that cornerback position, could you afford to lose a guy like Jair Alexander? I didn't think so. I really didn't think so. I thought Valentine played well when he was out. I thought Valentine showed sparks of playing well while Jair was out. So maybe they could afford to get rid of Jair, cut the cap. They would save a little bit. You're still going to end up paying him a little bit on that contract, but you would save a little bit on him. I don't know. That's an interesting case right there. Could you live without him? He's been injured as of late. So, I mean, we've lived without him in the past, but one full year of Jair Alexander is pretty darn good. Rogan, I mean, looking at Jair, would you want Jair back in Green Bay, or would you be okay if Jair and the Packers kind of separated ways here?
Trage, the thought of having 3 young, inexperienced cornerbacks with the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Barry coaching them next year scares me.
You're bringing Joe Barry back?
If he's back, if he's back, you're hearing it right now. If he's back, I'm going to be a Bears fan next year. I'm done.
Whoa, Bears. I'm just going to go to the Texans.
Yet, surprisingly.
I'm done. I'm done if he comes back. And like I was saying, if you have 3 young cornerbacks with him back there, game over. Yes, I want Jair back all day long, baby.
And that kind of leads me into a next conversation is, Matt LaFleur came out and he was talking, and he said he was going to meet with the coaches in the upcoming days and talk about, Joe Barry, everything like that. We'd hear about it here in the coming days. I don't understand why it didn't happen yet if Joe Barry's going to get fired. And if it doesn't happen within the next couple weeks, he's staying. And I just got that feeling, if he comes back, Matt LaFleur's job's got to be on the line too. It really does. If he can vouch for a guy who does not have a good track record, if you look at Joe Barry's track record throughout the NFL, it has not been good. And it hasn't been good in Green Bay. It's had sparks, but that's at the same time, that's player driven too. Some of these games, his players have just balled out. That's what they had to do in these games. You have a 4-man rush, and you have guys like Rashawn Gary getting in there, or Preston Smith getting older, but he can still get in there. And the defensive tackles, I mean, they've been playing well. That's helped out in that defense. So, players making Joel Barry look good in some of these games. Bad quarterback play. We saw Dak Prescott. That was bad quarterback play. That really helped Green Bay out. So, I mean, I just can't imagine bringing Joel Barry back. Austin, I mean, looking at this Green Bay team, are you in the same boat? If Matt LaFleur can bring back Joel Barry one more time for one more go-around, I mean, Matt LaFleur's got to walk too. You cannot afford another year of Joel Barry and a subpar defense for really long stretches. I mean, you look at the stretches on the season here for the Packers where they struggled. I mean, can you really afford to bring Joel Barry back?
Trade, it would hurt me to bring him back as a fan. We went through so much pain with him. We made the playoffs and we made it to the divisional round, and it was quite the run. All right. But the only reason why we were there is mainly because of Jordan Love and because he was able to score so many points. I'll give Joel Barry a little bit of credit. He did all right towards the end, but he did not do good enough to keep his job. Like I said, Super Bowl or he's gone. And maybe even if he won the Super Bowl, he should still be gone. Why he's not gone yet, I don't know. That's a great question because it's been almost a week now, and I haven't got a notification on my phone. I don't know about you guys, but my phone's been pretty silent on the Packer notifications on what's happening. So as of now, I guess he's still the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. But I'd expect him to be gone by at least when the draft starts, because I don't want him picking our players for our defense. I'd rather have someone who's actually competent and has a brain to pick the defense or to pick players for our defense. So that'd be wonderful. And I mean, I hope Matt LaFleur has a little bit of a brain. You know, us fans sometimes we kind of get a little carried away, and we like to play GM like Brian Gutekunst. We like to play that ourselves, and sometimes, let's be honest, the fans are wrong about a lot of things. Like we thought Brian Gutekunst was a nut for picking how many players in the past, but now you look at him, he's like, oh, Gutekunst, masterclass draft right here, you know, and it's like, oh, maybe we missed a little bit on Gutekunst there. Um, but as fans, I don't think we're missing on this one. I do not think we're missing on Joe Barry here. We've seen a lot of football. We've watched every single game, and we know how bad our defense has hurt us. Not just this year, not last year. This has been going back since I don't even remember when the last time we've had a defense inside the top 10. I feel like it's been a while. Maybe that 2010 defense was in the top 10. I'm not really sure when it was the last time. So we're struggling to find a defensive coordinator. And it seems like it's a year in, year out type of thing. And it doesn't matter what players we have out there. I feel like that's what we have to find first. You can look at free agency, and we'll talk about this later, but if you don't have a coach to coach these guys or give them the right schemes to win games, then that's where you're failing as an organization. And you can look at Matt LaFleur for that too. If Joe Barry decides to stick around another year, I don't know if getting rid of Matt LaFleur is the right decision, because you see what he was able to do with this young team, take this team to the divisional round, and kind of flip around this season. That takes a lot of talent as a coach, honestly. So I'll give him credit for that. And Matt LaFleur's been a really good coach, whether he had Aaron Rodgers or not, whether he has Jordan Love now. He's been a pretty good coach. I think we can all admit that. Yes, he's had some questionable decisions, but I think they have to get rid of Joe Barry. And I think that's just what it has to be, what it has to come down to. I don't think you can just keep him.
What my thing with Matt LaFleur is, and I agree, what he did with this Packers team was fantastic. But if you're going to watch the ship sink, because he watched it, Tommy DeVito ran all over that defense. Bryce Young, career day against that defense. Baker Mayfield didn't even have to try, and he was throwing tutties against that defense. You cannot ride that defensive coordinator to the end and tell me that we're going to keep him on the staff. We're going to keep him on the staff. He's doing an A-OK job. That's my problem with Matt LaFleur. I don't want to fire Matt LaFleur. Nobody wants to fire Matt LaFleur. But if he's going to ride this thing out, he's got to go down with the ship. That's plain and simple as it is. You can't vouch for a guy day in and day out and watch the struggle that is your defense. You can't watch guys sit out on your defense like Devondre Campbell was simply because he did not want to play for this guy. Rasul Douglas, we don't know the whole story, but Rasul Douglas getting traded away, he spoke out. He spoke out against that defense. He was gone. He was gone within a day. It just makes you really wonder what's going on behind the scenes there. And if Matt LaFleur can stick up for a guy like that, he's got to go with him. That's just, I don't want to fire him because I love what he's done. But if he doesn't have the cojones to fire his good buddy, somebody's got to walk. And if it's got to be both of them, it's got to be both of them. They don't make head coaches like Matt LaFleur every single day, but you can find somebody. You could find somebody out there. You don't want to, but you can't ride with Joe Barry anymore. You can't. The bad games outweigh the good games. Like you said, he had a good stretch there to end the year, but the bad games, the bad stretches throughout the year outweigh that. The bad stretches the year before that, and then you look back at his track record. He is not a good defensive coordinator. Far from it. Didn't matter if we put him on the sideline or we put him up in the booth. We tried both. Didn't work. So, Rogan, looking at that aspect there with Matt LaFleur and the defensive coordinator spot, are you in the same boat? Whereas if he can't fire Joe Barry, he needs to either figure it out or he's got to ride this ship till the end and go down with it.
You know, guys, I think I wouldn't mind Barry being gone there at all, but I'm going to be kind of the devil's advocate here because I've been kind of looking back at some of these games over the past 3 years, and I kind of threw together some stats just based off kind of all of our must-win games. So obviously,
don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. Don't do that.
I'm doing it, baby. 3 years ago, they played the 49ers. I think it was divisional round. Defense gave up 3 points. Packers lost 13-10. High flying.
Was that snowy game when they had the block punt?
Yep.
And Aaron Jones should have caught that one on the run and kept going and probably scored a touchdown. Yeah, I remember that game. Yeah.
So you're listing off things that had nothing to do with the defense in that game.
I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Game, defense balled out. Offense could not score. Special teams mistakes. We go to next year. I'm going to consider last year's Lions game a playoff game. Winning, you're in. Losing, you're out. Defense gives up 20 points. Offense, 16. This year, the last 2 games of the season, both must-wins, held the Vikings to 10 points, held the Bears to 9 points, obviously gave up 32 points to the Cowboys. But if anyone watched that game, the defense dominated. They scored 2 touchdowns late on third stringers. Dominated that game. Play the 49ers. Arguably, a lot of people think best team in the NFL, at least best offense in the NFL. Absolutely dynamic. Give up 24 points. What happens? Special team missed field goals, can't convert in the end zone. All I got to say is I don't think Joe Barry, I wouldn't mind seeing him go, but if you look back at these games, and even last year when they played the Lions that last game, they had to win 5 straight to end that year. And they played teams like the Dolphins and teams that were very good, and they created a lot of turnovers in the defense ball. So I kind of want to have at least one viewpoint from Joe Barry. If I was Joe Barry, I'd go to LaFleur and be like, hey, I know we struggled against some of these poor teams in the beginning of the season, but when it came down to do or die games, the defense did their job. It was the offense and special teams. And in all those games I was talking about, the offense averaged 15 points a game and the defense gave up 16. When your defense is giving up 16 points a game and you lost all 4 of those games I just mentioned, it's hard for me to blame Joe Barry on that. Would I mind seeing him gone? No. If he comes back, does he need to be better? Yes. But you can't deny the facts. When this guy plays a game that they need to win, the defense balls. So
I look back, though, last season, like you said, came down to the Lions game, right? And they had a 3rd and 2. I remember it like it was yesterday, 3rd and 2. His defense was playing 5 yards off. They were playing 5 yards off of the wide receivers there. They were able to dump it, little short, little gain, game over. I look back at that season. It took Jair Alexander saying, hey, let's run a man instead of this zone defense, because the first time they played the Vikings last year, Justin Jefferson went all over them, all over that Green Bay defense. The second time around, it was Jair Alexander who went in and said, let me man up on him. Let me man up on Justin Jefferson. Packers beat the Vikings. That's all. I mean, it took a player doing it. So it makes me wonder at the same time, these games that we're talking about, the do or die games, is it all Joe Barry or is it a lot of the defense balling out? They have playmakers on that defense. Is it the playmakers on the defense balling out? And you look at this season, that Vikings and Bears game to end the year should not have been must-win games. If you took care of business when you played the Buccaneers and you played the Giants, and I believe the Buccaneers game was at Lambeau, wasn't it? I believe. I think so. You took care of business there where you should have. Those games you probably get into the playoffs as the 6th seed. You're not facing Dallas right away. You probably face the Lions? Would they have played the Lions right off the bat? I believe it would have been the Lions. Yeah, they would have got the Lions. So you would have been facing the Lions. If not, I mean, if everything worked out the way you wanted it to, ended up as the 5 seed and played the 4 seed there. But you know what I'm saying is that it just, you look at the little things in there, like you went deep into the stats there, and you look at the do or die games. Yes, the defense has played well, but I look at the games leading up to that, and the games where it shouldn't have been do or die because the defense was terrible. That's what I look at. You know what I mean? Looking at the Giants game, looking at the Buccaneers game, there was other games in those stretches where the defense played poorly, and you should be able to beat the bad teams. And then you had to play in those do or die games, and the defense balled out. I mean, like we talked about with Dallas, the defense played well. I mean, all the way around, they played well. And was it all on Joe Barry? Because we know as of late in this season, Matt LaFleur was in there calling plays too on the defensive side. He stuck his head in there. So it makes you wonder, was it really Joe Barry, or is it like Matt LaFleur saying Joe Barry would call it down and Matt LaFleur would say, let's run this instead? Makes you really wonder what's going on behind the scenes. So, Austin, what do you got to go along with that?
I was just looking at the schedule in general, and not even just do or die games, but look at Atlanta. We lost 25-24, but Jordan Love threw for 151. Dillon was our highest rusher with 55 yards. And we all remember that game with Jordan Love ended up false starting there. I mean, granted, our defense gave up 25 points, but our offense had a chance to score the ball there. Now I go to Las Vegas, 17-13. You can't tell me that game was Joe Barry's fault. You can't. Jordan Love literally threw 2 picks or whatever to the same guy.
Guys, you guys are vouching for Joel Barry to get his job.
I'm just realizing low key he wasn't terrible. I mean, and then Denver, 19-17.
I look at the plays inside those games.
19-17.
There was plays
Jordan Love
inside
again.
that game.
Pittsburgh, 23-19. Jordan Love had a chance to win the game.
There's always going to be plays. Like Austin said,
I agree.
You look at a lot of these games that they played, and I don't like Barry either, but you start looking at these games. Raiders 17-13. Love had 3 interceptions in that game. The Broncos game, they hold them to 19 points. Like you're saying, you don't get in these do or die situations if the defense shows up in a couple. Well, if the offense shows up in 3 or 4 of these, you're not there either. So, you start looking at these. You actually start looking at these games, and it tells a little bit of a different story than what I think you kind of hear on the media right now with Barry. And I don't want him back, but it's kind of hard to deny some of the stuff.
You got to look back to last season, though, and even this season. Both seasons started whereas the defense had to carry the team. We knew this. The defense was going to have to carry because we were young. Even with Aaron Rodgers, we were carrying a young, inexperienced offense into that season. So the defense was going to have to hold their own, and they didn't last year. We knew that. They struggled to start that year. Flipped the script in the second half. Same with this season. The offense finally came around in the second half there, and they were able to hold their own. I mean, yes, there's going to be plays within games, but we got to look at the play calling that Joel Barry has on defense there. You can't rush 4 consistently throughout a game and expect to do, 0 sacks against Tommy DeVito and the Giants, who gave up going into that game 69 sacks on the season. They were one of the highest sack teams in the NFL going into that game against Green Bay, and Green Bay was not able to get to him once. That's bad. That's bad play calling. So yes, I agree with both of you. He's had games where, the defense did their job. But I look at that schedule too and I say mediocre quarterbacks, all the way down. This season, honestly, like you guys said, if the offense carried their own for the first part, the Packers wouldn't have struggled to get into the playoffs whatsoever. They should have. It was a cakewalk for most of this schedule here on this season. They didn't play anybody tough. They didn't have to face 49ers. They didn't really face anybody good in the NFC East between the Cowboys and Eagles. So they didn't have to face anybody fantastic. So, end of the day, yes, the defense looked good, but you got to look at the teams that they were playing too. Some subpar quarterbacks around the board there. I haven't looked at the schedule in a while, but you look at the first part of that schedule for Green Bay, and the best quarterback they faced was Jared Goff, or in Minnesota, they faced Kirk Cousins before he got hurt. Other than that, Stafford was hurt for the Los Angeles, that game against the Rams. Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. You faced Patrick Mahomes. You beat Patrick Mahomes. I'll give them that. They beat Patty Mahomes. But other than that, they were struggling at that time too. So I just look at the games and it's like, yeah, the defense looked fine. They didn't allow a lot of points, but you got to look at the guys that they were playing too. They didn't face anybody fantastic. And when they did, the Detroit Lions blew them out of the water there at Lambeau early on in the season. So, I just look at this and I say, we did not face anybody for the defense to actually struggle. Rogan, did you have something with that?
Yeah, Trey, I'd say, I think the most frustrating part is you see this defense perform decently well against these better teams. It's when they play these teams like the Giants and giving up 24 to the Giants, like you said, 30 to the Panthers. I think that's what drives people nuts. And the fact that the problem with the defense for the last 4 years has been the run defense. And in 4 years, they have not gotten any better. And you look at a team like the Lions, when Dan Campbell came in, they could not guard the run. So what did they say? He's like, we're going to take the run away. And now they have the number 1 rush defense in 2-3 years. And we've had the same problem for 5 years. And we've just either neglected it or thought it wasn't important to stop the run. So that's the part that's frustrating to me and why I would not mind seeing him gone. But it also depends on who's available too.
Yep.
If there's not really a good coordinator out there, then I think you might have to stick with him another year, see how he does, and then maybe look at next year's pool of D coordinators too.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And like you said, the run defense, we watch how many years have we dropped a playoff game because of the run defense? 49ers twice. I mean, McCaffrey in this one. And then you look before that, Mostert went for, I mean, Mostert and Kaepernick ran all over the Packers defense like it was
3,000
nothing.
yards, I think Mostert had in that game.
Yeah, just ridiculous numbers. And like you said, no improvement year by year. The little things. Dan Gamble goes into the Lions, he fixes it. That's what he does. He thinks that's the first thing he's got to fix. We don't do that. That's what I'm kicking here. And you know, you look at Green Bay's defense, they have playmakers. It's not like they don't have playmakers on the defense, but he hasn't been able to do anything with those playmakers. How many times do we go into the first round of the draft and we draft a corner or we draft a safety? You know, we load up the defense, but none of them pan out, or we trade them away and then they pan out somewhere else. That's, I mean, just the struggle with the defense right now. Yes, I agree with the, you know, it depends who's available kind of deal. And that sucks to say because I don't want to see Joe Barry back. I'd like to see a change. I really would love to see a change in Green Bay, a different philosophy on the defensive side of the ball, something more oriented, like you said, stopping the run, because teams, they find running backs out there every other day and they run all over you. The pass defense, like you said, for Green Bay hasn't been bad. I mean, that's a lot to do with we have some pretty good corners there in Green Bay, but the run defense, man, that has been rough for Green Bay. Austin, anything to add there at the end?
No, I thought we covered pretty much everything that has to do with Joe Barry and his situation and the Packers defense as well. It'll definitely be interesting to see who the Packers pick in the first round. Rogan said in our little group chat here that the Packers have the most first round picks on any defense in the NFL. So honestly, wouldn't be surprised if we went for another first round pick here in defense, whether that's Kool-Aid McKinstry or maybe even a D lineman. I can see that possibly be happening. But what I've been seeing in the latest like mock drafts or whatever, possibly going with an O lineman, that could be also be another possibility there too. We definitely know they're not getting a quarterback, running back, or wide receiver or tight end. I'm almost guarantee you that's not happening because last time we did any of that was Jordan Love. So probably not those four. Most likely going to be on the defensive end here or O line, and it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do first round or on draft day.
Yeah, the Packers leading up into this draft, they have 5 picks in the top 91 overall. They're going to have number 25, 41, 58, 88, and then 91. So they're going to have a lot of picks there right off the bat to be able to bolster up whatever they're going to do. You can never have enough offensive linemen, and you can never have enough weapons. That's a big thing too. You know, they got a pretty good wide receiver core, but you can never have enough. One guy goes down, you got to have another to back him up. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to look for weapons there in the draft. But I like McKinstry too. I'd love to see Green Bay get McKinstry there in that first pick. But who knows? You never know with Brian Gutekunst what he's going to do in the draft. So I want to go into the free agents for Green Bay, see who we think we would bring back if we were in charge, see who we'd bring back. So the main guys on the top there who are free agents, we're going to have A.J. Dillon, Rudy Ford, Josiah DeGuara, Tyler Davis. We have Yash Nyman, Keyshawn Nixon, Jonathan Owens, John Runyon, Darnell Savage, and Eric Wilson. There's also going to be free agents out there, restricted exclusive right free agents. Zane Anderson, Caleb Jones, Bo Melton, Benny Sapp III, Robert Rochelle, Patrick Taylor, and Daniel Whelan, the punter. I look at that list. I bring back Nixon. I bring back Keyshawn Nixon. I really do think they just bring him back. I love him at kick returner. I really do. And if he's a kick return specialist for you, whatever. I think he could be implemented in the offense, to be honest with you. I never thought that was a bad idea. When they were talking about him being in there maybe in a slot position on the offense, I never thought that was a terrible idea. So whatever they do with Nixon, I would love to see him back. Savage, he used to be such a hard hitter. I mean, when he came in, he was a hard hitter for Green Bay, and he's really dropped off. I don't know if it's the defensive scheming or what it is, but I think Savage has dropped off with his ability to hit. And I don't know what, I really don't know what happened with him. But Savage, experienced safety, I would bring back Savage there. And I'm also bringing back Jonathan Owens. I liked what Jonathan Owens did for Green Bay. And if he doesn't start going into next year, I definitely think he's a good option coming off the bench there to fill in. And then, I mean, A.J. Dillon, I'm letting him walk. That's a big one, but I'm letting A.J. Dillon walk. And then Josiah DeGuara, he's definitely a guy I let walk. He's been nothing but problems for Green Bay ever since he walked in the door. I don't know why they kept him around as long as they did. I'm letting him walk. You have 2 tight ends in there now. You can find another tight end out there if you need one. So I'm good with letting Josiah DeGuara walk. Besides Eric Wilson, I'd love to see him back just because of his play against the 49ers. Bring him back, let him ride the pine. That's okay with me. He's probably a small contract. Daniel Whelan, the punter, he's restricted, but I'm definitely signing him for a little while. I didn't think he did anything wrong there in the punting department. And then Bo Melton. I'm bringing Bo Melton back. I loved what Bo Melton did. They tried to make him a big hitter. They had a couple of shots for him deep down the field. He definitely has the ability to get some separation. So I like Bo Melton being an option there at receiver. So I'm going to jump to Austin right away. Any of those free agents that I named off there jump off the board to you? Guys that you would bring back, guys you definitely aren't bringing back to Green Bay.
Yeah, Keyshawn Nixon, big one. You look at this guy, he's been 2-time All-Pro returner there for the Packers. I can't remember the last time we've had someone like him. Probably Desmond Howard there for the Packers. So definitely an impact player on special teams, but he's also been kind of getting in a groove of things on defense. So definitely a good player there. I liked Jonathan Owens, his play towards the end of the year too. I thought he was starting to grow a lot as the player, and his wife is Simone Biles, so that's pretty cool. Like her. And then Darnell Savage,
Mr. Simone Biles, that is.
Mr. Simone Biles. And then Darnell Savage,
Mr. Simone Biles.
Yes, he not as much of a thumper, but also I thought he started to play a little bit better towards the end of the year too. He was a little bit injured there, came back. He did give up a couple big passes there in the 49ers game, I'm pretty sure. But you also look, he got a pick 6 against the Cowboys. He should have had another probably pick 6 against the 49ers. But even though he didn't catch it, he was in the right position there. You can fix that stuff. He knows what he's doing. He's experienced, like you said. I think sometimes it's hard to find. Last time we've had a safety was Adrian Amos. I mean, he's gone now. I feel like it'd be hard to find someone that can take over that, but I think as of now, you keep him. And then you said Josiah DeGuara. Yeah, I mean, he's amazingly just a special teams player. I mean, we already got Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, and Ben Sims that already play over top of him in the tight end department. So you can probably let Josiah DeGuara go there, and Tyler Davis, honestly. Other people that I'd keep, probably John Runyon, honestly. We're not paying him a whole lot to begin with, and he did get some play. He started or got quite a few snaps, even in the San Fran game, and I thought he played pretty well. I thought our offensive line played pretty well as a unit, so definitely keep him. Yash Nyman would be my only question. Now, for some of the games that he did play, he was pretty good, but I think we're paying him quite a bit here. So, depending on who we draft, if it is an O lineman first overall, probably going to be a tackle, because tackle is your number one guy. We're kind of missing that left tackle spot. Rasheed Walker played pretty well. Zach Tom played pretty well. We know that stuff, but I mean, let's be honest, we're probably getting rid of David Bakhtiari at the end of this year. I can't see us keeping him. That'd just be stupid if we kept him, honestly, for how much we're paying him. If we would draft an O-lineman early, it'd be probably a tackle. And so that brings into question, do we keep Yash Nyman, considering Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom kind of both outplayed him this year? So that's kind of it. You hit Bo Melton. Bo Melton's obviously, you got to re-sign him. I mean, if you don't, it's going to be another one of those players that another team picks up, like a Taysom Hill, and then he becomes a superstar at another pretty good place. So you got to keep Bo Melton, considering how much he's progressed and how good he was towards the end of the year. Definitely worth re-signing. A lot of these guys, honestly, don't really even know. Patrick Taylor, you can let walk. Like you said, probably just keep Daniel Wheel in there. I thought he played pretty good too as a punter. And then A.J. Dillon, I think we let him walk and draft another running back, specifically a certain Braylon Allen. That would be quite the bombshell right there. Braylon Allen, I mean, he might not have as big of quads as A.J. Dillon, but I guarantee you he probably squats just as much because that man is a beast. He's a man-child. Think about this. He's only 20. Right now he's 19 years old. Braylon Allen's 19 years old, not even 20 years old yet. He's going to be so young. He'll have how many years? Whoever gets him is going to be getting – whoever drafts Braylon Allen is going to be getting a really good running back. Hopefully it's the Packers if we let A.J. Dillon walk. But Eric Wilson, do you keep him just for the fact that he recovered that fumble on the kickoff? I don't know. Maybe. He's kind of old. He's 29 years old, so a little bit older there, but not terrible. We've seen some older linebackers. He doesn't really get a whole lot of playing time. He mainly be a special teams player. But, I mean, he plays hard on special teams. You need players like that. So I wouldn't mind bringing him back. But like I was saying, David Bakhtiari isn't on this list, but I think you got to get rid of him to clear up some cap space if you do want to sign someone.
Definitely. Can never have enough tackles. So I think going into the draft, I think they find a tackle in the draft at some point. So Rogan, jumping to you, any of those free agents jump out at you? Who you're signing back, who you're getting rid of?
Yeah, boys, I'll keep this short and sweet for you guys. I think, obviously, you bring back Keyshawn Nixon there. And Keyshawn, and with the punter, too, is that Whelan? Yeah, Whelan. Yeah. I think you bring him back, too, for sure, those two. Like Austin was saying, I wouldn't mind seeing Runyon come back, but I don't know what kind of money he's going to be. He didn't start towards the end of the year. I think Newman kind of took his role, but Runyon wasn't bad. So he's a good guard, and those are pretty hard to come by in the NFL right now. So I just don't know if I have the money for him. I think you bring back Ballantyne. He had a pretty good year, and he's only going to get better. And then I think you either bring back Savage or Owens. I don't think you bring back both of them, but I don't know. When Savage is playing good, like he's a really good safety, but there's been so many ups and downs with his playing, and I don't. It's just getting late to see if he's going to build that consistency or not. And Jonathan Owens is kind of new for the Packers, and I thought he played pretty well down the stretch. So between those two guys, I think you got to sign one of them. And then, like Austin was saying with Josh Nyman, he's a really solid tackle. And like you were saying, Trage, tackles are so hard to come by right now. So it's really important to have depth at probably the most important position on the offensive line, especially in the NFL with the edge rushers. But I think he's probably going to demand a pretty decent contract. And I just don't know if the Packers really have the money or the need to spend it on a backup tackle at the moment. So, yeah, I'd let Dillon walk. I think it would be a great idea to draft Braylon Allen, but you guys know the track record for the Packers with drafting good Wisconsin Badger guys. They usually don't. TJ Watt. But I think Allen would be perfect, but it's pretty easy to get a power running back in the draft nowadays. So I think you let Dillon walk, save some money, and get another running back for sure.
We got to keep Simone Biles in Green Bay. That's all I know. We got to keep Simone Biles around. She's like our Taylor Swift, except for better. We don't got to see her as much. That's the thing. She stays low profile. We don't have to see her on TV, but we know she's there.
And she's better. I mean,
and
you see
she's
Taylor
better.
Swift doing backflips? No.
I don't see Taylor Swift winning gold medals.
She has more Olympic medals, too.
Exactly. More gold medals. That's what I'm saying. It goes right with the cheese.
At anything she does? Nope.
Exactly. That one's going to hurt Taylor Swift. I know it's going to hurt her. So with that, we're going to move on here. I just wanted to talk about your hometown's team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty. Call Peggy Sue or Anna to find your dream home, or if you're looking to sell, find them on Facebook at your hometown team, Century 21 Gold Key Realty, or stop in and see them at their location in Marshfield. With that, though, I want to move on here talking about the Badgers. Badgers with we talked about it. I said it. The Badgers were going to have to figure out how to win a gutsy game. They were going to have to be able to pull one out, and, well, they just pulled one out there at the barn. 61-59 was the final. The Badgers moved to 15-4 on this season. Minnesota drops to 12-7. This was a barn burner in that second half for the Badgers. The offense went stagnant. They had to rely a lot on that defensive side. So, Austin, what were we seeing for some stats in that one that really stood out there?
Yeah, barn burner, like you said. I just want to point out Minnesota was making some ridiculous three-point shots that I don't think they'll ever make again. That's what I think kept them in this game. Like, there was one where this dude from Minnesota, I think it was Hawkins, like, did some crazy step back, and it banked off and went in. I'm like, all right, that's kind of stupid, but it was a close game overall, and luckily we were able to make our free throws down the stretch there. But this one was led by Tyler Wall, 16 points here for the Badgers. And then AJ Storr had 15 points, but 12 rebounds also. Double-double for AJ Storr. Klesmit had 11 there to add onto the total. Hepburn had only 3, so we're seeing a little slack from him. He was taking a little bit more shots. He shot the ball 6 times, only made him once. There, not a whole lot off our bench. We did mention that Nick Winters was probably going to get a lot of playing time, and he did. He had 12 minutes, only added 3 points there, but for the amount he played, it wasn't terrible for Steven Crowl. When you look at Minnesota Golden Gophers here, Hawkins led the team with 16 points, and Garcia had 10. Not a whole lot coming from the rest of their players. Also, I mean, Payne had 9 points and 7 rebounds, but that's about it. I just think this was a really close game. We couldn't really find our shot, really. I mean, we went 7 for 17 from 3-point, which is, I feel like, a little bit lower than what we're usually seeing from this Badgers team, where Minnesota shot 10 for 24. They were also 41%, but like I said, they were kind of making some crazy shots. A lot of them were open, but they were making some crazy shots that kept them in this game. I think what came down to the Badgers winning this game, though, is you look at the free throws. Badgers shot 8 for 10 there, where Minnesota shot 5 for 13. And it came down to bite them in the butt. One of them they had to miss at the end there to try and win the game, which they almost made that shot to tie it. Not going to lie, it was pretty close there, but he ended up missing. But this Minnesota Gophers team, they should have made at least more of their free throws there, but they didn't, and the Badgers made 80% of theirs, and I think that's what was able to make the Badgers win this close game, which is good to see. It was good to see the Badgers pull out this tough win. It's the first time we haven't seen the Badgers score over 60 points or 70 points in a while, I feel like. They've kind of just been shooting the ball really well, and I was really surprised. I was like 11 minutes left, and we were still at 50, so I'm like, all right, we'll get going here. We'll get going, and they just never started getting going. It was really a game of runs. It was a game of runs in this one, but like I said, Badgers were able to pull it out. It was a good win. It was a win at the end of the day.
Gets the rebound there on that missed free throw. Son of a gun. It shouldn't have came down to that last shot. Get the rebound. But, you know, what I learned in this game for Wisconsin, length bothers the Badgers. They played Arizona. That was a lanky team. That bothered the Badgers. You want to know the difference? Arizona can shoot the lights out of a building if you let them do it. Minnesota can't. That's where the two things came into play there. Length bothers the Badgers, and they have to find a way to get over that because we talked about it. Steven Crowl is going to have a big game going into this one, 7 points. He had 7 points in the paint. You're not going to win many games like this because this is one of those classic Big Ten games. You got to slow down the pace. It's more defense. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You got to control the paint. And Steven Crowl didn't do that for the Badgers. 7 points in this one. I believe he only had 3 rebounds in total. Yeah, 3 rebounds for Steven Crowl in this game. That's your big guy. That's your big fella. And he's getting you 3 rebounds. That's not good. That's not good if you're Wisconsin. The length bothered him. Tyler Wall played well, though. I mean, that was what was good to see was Tyler Wall playing well. He was still able to bang around in there. But, man, it makes you worry. It really does because there's a lot of lanky teams out there. Purdue, very lanky. They can get on you. So that worries me going into that game. I think this was a good game for the Badgers. We talked about it yesterday. How do the Badgers respond? Because like you said, we weren't used to this. They've been scoring 80, 90 points a game here consistently as of late. What were they going to do when the shots weren't falling? And that's what it was in this one. How were they going to respond? And I thought they responded well at the end. I thought they did. They played a little bit tighter on defense. Tyler Wall was able to draw a charge there late now and on Garcia. But, I mean, other than that, you look at the Badgers in this one, the offense went stagnant again in that second half. You look at the box, I mean, looking at scoring per half in this one, and the Badgers outright struggled in the second half, 27 points in total in that second half. Couldn't get the shots to fall, had to rely back on that defense, and I thought it was almost like a new concept to them again. They're like, oh, crap, shots aren't falling. What are we going to do now? We got to ball up on the defensive end. I thought they responded well. That was what was good to see in this one. Shouldn't have been as close as what it was. Minnesota struggled in the first, like we were talking. And then, like you said, I mean, second half, they were banging it from everywhere from downtown. I couldn't believe it. I mean, everything was falling that they put up in that second half. But the free throw line, I couldn't believe Minnesota shot that poorly at the free throw line, 5 for 13. Badgers shouldn't have even had to lead in this one, looking at those stats. But, you win games how you win games. And this one was a barn burner at the barn, and Badgers were able to pull it out, but a worrisome win because I just don't like how the Badgers handle length in other teams. So, Rogan, going off of that, anything that you saw from the Badgers in this one that stood out as good or bad?
Yeah, boys. Not going to lie, didn't really watch the game tonight. I was trying to play Fortnite on someone's Roku remote, but I did kind of look into the stats. And like I said, no need to pat my back, but I think when we were previewing this game, I said that these big guys on the Minnesota team were going to give the Badgers trouble in the paint, especially with how they block shots. And you look at that box score, and Minnesota had 7 blocked shots, and this was probably one of our worst offensive performances of the year, especially that second half, only scoring 27 points. So that, like you're saying, the length worries me with this Badger team because the Badgers aren't overly lengthy themselves. Obviously, you have a guy like Crowell, but Crowell's he's not your typical big man. Like, he's long, but he's not very strong under the hoop, I wouldn't say. And coming off the bench, they don't have a lot of – you got Winter, but he's a freshman, so you can't really expect a ton out of him. And then Gilmore is an all right player, but he gives you nothing on the offensive side of the ball, so doesn't really get that many minutes. So I hate to say it, but I did kind of see this one coming with a struggle. But, again, tough game. It's Minnesota. The game's always going to be tough. The most important part is you came out with a W. So, but – yeah, Minnesota really lost this game. Like, you look at that free throw line, and they lost this game. 5 of 13, 38% for a college basketball team is horrible. In a 2-point game, you make, 10 out of 13 is nothing special to ask for from the free throw line, and you win this game by 3 points. So, and like I said before this Minnesota game, the defense in the second half for the Badgers has been concerning this year. And this is another game where they had a pretty decent defensive showing in the first half, but got considerably worse in the second half. And you don't like to see that because you'd think that going into halftime, you'd make adjustments to be even better on the defensive side of the ball or have counters to whatever adjustments the other team are making. But you've seen it again and again with this Badgers defense in the second half. It has not been good.
No, that is exactly right. And it makes you nervous leading into a lot of this Big Ten games because Minnesota, they're better on this season, but they're still not the top. They're still not at the top of the Big Ten. You're going to face some better teams. You have Illinois on the docket yet. You got Purdue twice. You got to face Northwestern. I mean, there's some good teams in the Big Ten, and they're going to make you pay, especially if you struggle on defense. And the Badgers, as of late, we've talked about it. The defense has been struggling, and, well, the offense wasn't able to carry them in this one, and the defense almost blew it. Almost blew this one away. So good to see the Badgers pull off a win. We talked about it, though. Chucky Hepburn in this one shot a little bit more. 1 for 6 from the field. He had 3 points in this one. He had a 3. But other than that, I mean, Chucky still hasn't been able to get it going on the offensive end there in the scoring department. He does a lot more than what we read in the stat book. I get that. But at some point, we got to see Chucky well-rounded into what he's supposed to be as a player there for the Badgers. Max Klesmit continued his good shooting there from downtown, 3 for 5. Got to love what Max has been doing as of late. But, again, you didn't have a guy scoring 24 points for you, and the Badgers struggled. And hopefully, building off this game, they start to realize that maybe at halftime, we got to make some adjustments too. You would think at halftime, Greg Gard's going in there and he's saying, hey, we did this well in the first half, but coming out in the second half, I got a good feeling they're going to do this, and I got a good feeling they're going to try this against us. I don't think we've seen that. They've been flipping the script on the Badgers in the second half, and it's killed them. I mean, look at that Penn State game. They dropped 87 on the Badgers. We haven't seen, besides Arizona this year, we haven't seen many teams go for over 70 against the Badgers there, and Penn State was able to do it. And Penn State, I mean, they're a good team, but they're nothing fantastic. So definitely concerning there on the defensive end, but a good win for the Badgers there. Austin, what did you have to add there to this Wisconsin and Minnesota matchup?
Not to add to the Minnesota-Wisconsin matchup, just Chucky Hepburn, like you were saying. I was looking at some stats from the past 3 years. You look at 2021, or let's go back to last year. Chucky Hepburn averaged 12.2 points per game. And overall, the Badgers averaged 64.9 points per game. Now, you look back to 2021-2022 season, Chucky Hepburn, he was a freshman, but he averaged 7.9 points per game and played in every single game. Now you look back again to this year, he averages 7.2 points per game or something. Look at who our leading scorers are. Johnny Davis, 19.7 points per game. This year, AJ Storr, 15 points per game. It seems like when we've had a guy kind of like Johnny Davis, AJ Storr, Chucky Hepburn hasn't had to score like he's had to in those years compared to, we say, last year when he needed to score 12 whatever a game. But you also look at our totals. In 2021-22, the team averaged 60 or 70 points per game. So it's helped out our offense actually when he hasn't had to play or when he hasn't had to score that much, which is kind of interesting. And honestly, I thought him being a facilitator is really good for our team. He's led all 3 years in assists, so that's I think what's the main part. And he's actually grown these past few years. He's averaging more assists per game this year than he has the past 2 years, and I think that is also what contributes us to now averaging 76.5 points per game.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you there with the cast of characters that he's got around him. He doesn't have to do as much. I just want him to see him be a threat. I want Chucky Hepburn to be a threat that when we need a bucket, he can go get that bucket. And so far this year, he's had a couple, but I just don't think he's that threat so far. So definitely I just want to see him get going there to become that offensive threat that we know Chucky Hepburn can be. So with that, I just want to get into two of our sponsors here, and that is first Pittsville Farm and Home Center. At the store, they serve you anything from hydraulic hoses to red roses. Stop in and see the awesome crew down there at Pittsville Farm and Home Center in Pittsville. And then I wanted to talk about Game Day Supply in Onalaska. Do you have a sports club or team? Are you looking for some sweet custom uniforms or apparel? Check out the awesome crew at Game Day Supply to help your team get the sweetest gear. Find them on Facebook at Game Day Supply or online at GameDaySupply.net. But with that, I'm going to jump to Austin here. He's going to get us our fact of the day.
Yeah, Trage, our fact of the day comes from 1964 when CBS purchases the 1964 and 1965 NFL TV rights for $28.2 million. And now we kind of see what that has turned into with CBS kind of mainly doing the AF or American League games or the American Conference games there in the playoffs. And I'm sure that number is a lot more than $28.2 million this day.
Definitely interesting right there. That was an interesting fact of the day. We always get in, it seems like we always get into some TV, something going on with the TV. Lately it's been Peacock. I can imagine in the future we're going to be talking about the day that Peacock turned into the main provider for the NFL. So hopefully we don't get to that day. Hopefully we don't get to that day. But with that, I want to get into our sports story of the day. So I'm going to jump to Austin right away. Austin, what do you got for me? Sports story of the day.
Yeah, my sports story of the day is there are 3 players that got inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame yesterday. Adrian Beltre, I think it's Tom. Let me see here. I got to scroll
Todd
down
Helton.
here. Todd Helton, yep. And Joe Meyer. Joe, how do you pronounce it there, Trage? Mauer. Joe Mauer. Mauer played for the Twins, pretty sure his whole career there. Helton played for the Colorado Rockies, and Beltre was basically a Rangers man his whole career there. So 3 guys inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame this upcoming 2024 year.
Yeah, definitely all deserving. My favorite thing out of all those 3 was Adrian Beltre, just because of the way he played the game. It was fun to watch. And my favorite thing I ever saw was, did you guys see when he got tossed out of the game for moving the on-deck circle? Did you guys ever see that
was
video?
Funny.
That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. If anybody didn't see it, the umpire told him that he had to go back to the on-deck circle. And it's one of those ones that's like, it's not actually painted into the ground. It's movable. And they told him he had to go back to the on-deck circle. So he went and he grabs it. And he pulls it over to where he was standing and he sets it down. And then he goes to step back on it and the ump tossed him out right then. I thought that was the funniest thing I ever saw. So definitely all deserving right there.
He just stood there swinging his bat as if he just did not get tossed out of the game. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, didn't care. He's like, oh yeah, I guess. So, so yeah, definitely all deserving right there of getting into the MLB Hall of Fame. So with that, Rogan, we're gonna go to you next. What do you got for your sports story of the day?
Yeah, boys. Again, I don't know what's been up with me lately, but I think I have been on an absolute roll. If you guys do recall, a couple weeks ago, I said I had a hot take, and I said, boys, I don't think Adrian Griffin's going to make it through the whole year as the Bucks head coach. And we talked about it a little bit, and I said, I just don't think he's going to make it. And what happens yesterday? Adrian Griffin is fired. And from the sounds of it, it looked like a lot of the guys in the locker room, including Giannis, including Dame, Middleton, were just did not like how he was handling the team. He kind of lost control over the locker room. And actually, I'm just getting a text from Adrian Wojnarowski. The Bucks just hired Doc Rivers. It's official. Just hired Doc Rivers yesterday. So, wow, that's crazy to think that.
He's getting a text.
I just got a text. NBA Insider.
Woj. He's getting a text from Woj.
He's got a text from Wojnarowski from the past.
John Horst and Woj just texted me. But yeah, the Bucks actually just hired Doc Rivers. So yeah, I mean, Doc's going to be a guy. The thing with Doc that the Bucks need from him is his accountability, especially on the defensive end. And Doc Rivers is a guy that players have loved in the past. I know he's kind of struggled in the playoffs a little bit, but he hasn't had players like Giannis and Dame before. And he's going to demand that the Bucks are accountable, especially on the defensive end and playing together on the offensive end. So I think it's definitely going to take some time to get this thing rolling, because this is Adrian Griffin's first year. He gets fired halfway through the season, and they have the second best record in the NBA. And now you're bringing in another coach halfway through a season. So after you just fired your head coach last year. So, but yeah, pretty big news for the Bucks there.
You know what? That's the craziest part. You understand if it was like the Detroit Pistons. You'd get it. 30-13, you're second in the East, and your coach gets fired, and it's like, whoa. I mean, yes, we've seen the defensive struggles. We understand the defensive struggles and why it happened the way that it did. But it's like 30-13, and you're going to let your coach go. That's, surprising to most people out there. And you look at the Bucks. I was just looking at the stats today, and their defensive efficiency from 2022 to 2023, so last season, they were ranked 4th in the league. Going into this year, they're ranked 22nd. You look at points per direct pick, they are ranked 3rd in the league last year. They're ranked 24th in the league this year. And you look at points per direct drive, they were ranked 2nd in the league last year, and they were ranked 20th in the league this year. Just the drop-off that we saw in this Bucks defense. Now, yes, you did lose. Grayson Allen was a pretty good defender, and you did lose Drew Holiday, so that doesn't help. But definitely just to see that drop-off, you expect maybe middle of the pack at that point. You're allowing the Pistons to almost beat you 3 times now. So something had to happen. They said, from what I saw, John Horst, so the general manager, John Horst, and assistant GM, Milton Newton, were actually observing practices and shoot-arounds as of this last week and a half or so. They've been actually in at practices and stuff like that, watching what was going on there. And it's not uncommon to go to practices or to watch them, but most executives, like they were talking, they do it from an office. They don't do it from watching in the gym. And these two were in the gym watching these practices, seeing how these were being held and everything like that. And they were on the sidelines, actually. And that definitely makes you wonder what's going on when your GM and assistant GM are standing in the room on the sideline watching practices. You don't see that too often. So you knew something was up there. It's interesting. I didn't see it coming. I saw it maybe later on in the season, but at 30-13, I didn't really see it coming. That was kind of surprising me. I wanted it to happen. I thought he was a big problem in the locker room. But, you look at what he had to say, and he said, I appreciate the opportunity the Bucks gave me. You can't control everything. I feel good about the job we did. I appreciate my coaching staff for all their hard work. I always wanted to be a head coach in this league. I couldn't have asked for a better roster. I got to coach Giannis, Dame, Chris, Brooke. Dream come true. Hopefully I get another shot at it, but overall, I'm just thankful. So, wowza. That was breaking news yesterday there, and like you said, it's interesting to fire and hire a coach mid-season, but I think with the experience of Doc Rivers, I don't think it's going to be hard. I don't think it's going to be a terrible shoe in there. He's experienced in the league. If you brought a guy who is inexperienced, I think it might have been a problem. But you're bringing in an experienced coach in Doc Rivers. He knows how to coach stars. He's coached stars before. He's had Chris Paul. He had Blake Griffin. He's had his fair DeAndre Jordan at one point there with the Clips. So he's had his fair share of stars and has coached them. So he knows how to round up the stars. He can control a locker room, I believe. And like you said, the defensive end, he'll only improve on that end. So I think it's going to get better for the Bucks here. So Rogan, you got another thing to add there?
Yeah, just like you're saying, I do hope Griffin gets another chance there because he was really, in my opinion, kind of brought into an impossible situation, especially just like looking at his style, like especially on defense. He likes to be pressuring the ball, hounding guys but with this roster, and they're not very athletic. It just his defensive style from the beginning did not fit the players that this Bucks team had. And then on top of that, you bring him into a team that mostly made up of guys that just won a championship 2 years ago, and he's a rookie. So, I mean, you saw times during the game when he'd sub like Dame or Giannis out, and they'd basically tell him no and go check themselves back in. Like, as a coach, you cannot allow that to happen. I don't care if you are right or you are wrong. The players have to respect you, and it's hard for players to respect a guy that's never coached before. But like you said with Doc, he's had his ups and downs, but at least they know with Doc, this guy coached for a long time and coached really good teams. So he's going to have their respect immediately.
Yeah, and talking about Adrian Griffin there, a job that might stand out, you go to a team with rookies, the Detroit Pistons, just because, like you were talking there, it's more upbeat, more pressure in the face defense. They have some athletic young guys on that team for the Pistons. So I think Adrian Griffin could jump ship and go over to the Pistons there, and I think he could possibly have a pretty good roster to work with. But you throw a guy into a locker room with veterans and you're trying to have him control Giannis. I mean, there's no player that can control Giannis. What coach is going to be able to walk in there, especially with the credibility that he's got, and say, this is what it's got to be and this is how it's going to get done? No way. Not a chance in heck that was ever going to work out. So, like you said, set up for failure basically from the beginning. It was kind of just, we wanted a guy who could go on the sideline and pat the stars on the head. He just wanted him to pat them on the back and say, good job, buddy. Good job. You go in when you want. I'll pull you out when you're tired, and then you go back in when you want. That's what they wanted. And I don't think Adrian Griffin was going to be that guy. And like you were talking there earlier, I think it caused turmoil in the locker room there, especially with the stars. They didn't like the way that he was coaching. We know Giannis has got a lot of pull here in the organization, so I would love to hear what Giannis has got to say about the firing of Adrian Griffin and see if, I'd love to see if maybe he was in on it because, he's got a lot of pull in the organization. So you wonder what Giannis has to say about it. So, Austin, anything you want to add there on the Bucks front there with Adrian Griffin being fired?
No, you guys basically covered it all. Poor Joe Prutney, though. I mean, Buddy doesn't even get to coach a game, even though he was technically assigned the interim head coach as Adrian Griffin left, and now they decided to hire Doc Rivers right away. So maybe we'll get to see. I don't know when Doc Rivers is going to start coaching for the Bucks. Maybe not this game that they play tonight, but possibly the next one that they play against the Cavs. But hey, I'm excited. Doc Rivers, pretty good coach overall. He's had some pretty talented teams, like you guys are saying there, and it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do with this Bucks team. Maybe you can't say really turn it around because I mean they're 40 and whatever. Now they're 40 and 13 or something, or 30 and I don't know what their record is, but yeah, 30 and 13. So I mean they're second in the East and they're playing really good. But I mean, from what this article from CBS Sports says is kind of like what Rogan was saying, is Griffin tried to implement a more aggressive defensive scheme early in the season. But admitted that Milwaukee's players had convinced him to change it after early struggles. So that's kind of what we're seeing, as it was a defensive thing. And then Giannis reportedly lost faith in him. So definitely a little bit of strings moving there. Giannis is kind of being the puppet maker and moving some strings, I feel like. If Giannis ain't happy, then the Bucks organization isn't happy. Honestly, if Thanasis isn't happy, then Giannis isn't happy, and then the Bucks organization isn't happy. So I think everything revolves around Thanasis. Not entirely sure. It could be a rumor. I don't know. Woj did not text me about that, but still waiting on that text. But overall, I think Doc Rivers is hopefully a good hire. Oh, Rogan's on the phone. You got something, Rogan?
Well, yeah, Woj just confirmed that Griffin got fired because he tried to cut Thanasis. That's
Oh,
what
there it
happened.
is. There it is.
There it is.
Yep, knew it. No, all seriousness. Hopefully, Doc
I would
Rivers
have
is
kept
able to.
Adrian Griffin on at that point.
Hopefully,
Let
Doc
you
Rivers
walk.
is able to turn this defense around, and excited to see what the Bucks are able to do coming up in the second half of the season.
Can you imagine that phone call home? Hey, sweetheart, just so you know, I just got named the head coach of the Bucks here for the rest of the season, and you're all excited. And then about 2 hours later, you got to call back home, be like, "Hey, just so you know, we're not going out to dinner tonight. I am now back to my assistant coach job." Like, what a poor turn of events for that guy. I mean, son of a gun. But I mean, end of the day, business decision, right? It kind of worries you though that Giannis has got a lot of control. And sometimes Giannis is a little, I don't know how to really put it into words, but far out with what he wants. And I don't think that's good at the end of the day either, because you could have turnover over turnover of coaches just because Giannis doesn't like him. He doesn't like this guy. So let's get him out of here. And then, like you said there, Adrian Griffin tried to implement one thing, and the player said, no. We're not doing this. We're going to do something else. Are you the coach of the basketball team if they tell you what you're going to do? I don't think so. I don't like that. So I don't know. Definitely some interesting news coming out of Milwaukee right now. But hey, they're going to be in action tonight. They're going to be taking on the Cavs. So, like you said, I don't know. Doc Rivers probably won't be there for this game. I don't know when Doc Rivers will be fully in there as head coach. He will get a. I mean, what was his name? The assistant coach got named interim head coach. Anybody got his name up still?
Joe Prutney or Prutney. I don't know how I pronounce
I'm
his last name.
assuming he will be a head coach for a game. I think he will be the head coach for this one here against
Good
the
for him.
Cavs. So yeah, exactly. He got a shot. He got a
One
shot.
game for the rest of his life.
I
Imagine,
hope he cuts
imagine
the
they just kick the
Thanasis in
crap
his
out of
one
the
job.
Cavs, and then they're like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have hired Doc Rivers. We should have kept this Joe guy." But too late.
His first. I hope he walks in there and he goes, "My first act as head coach, I am cutting Thanasis off this basketball team." What are they gonna do? Fire me? I mean, I'm getting fired when Doc Rivers shows up, so who cares? But
Who cares?
We got the
Just
Cavs.
gets rid of
We got
everyone.
just unloads the roster. We got the Cavs and the Bucks coming up from the Pfizer tonight, a 7:00 tip for that one. So, Austin, what are we seeing for some key guys to watch out for in this one? We've seen the Cavs before. We know kind of a little bit about them, but who are we looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, we're looking at Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he's been the main scorer for them the past how many times the Bucks have played him. He's averaging 27.8 points per game here, 5.4 rebounds, 6.1 assists. He leads the team in points, assists, and steals. He averages 2 steals a game. Jarrett Allen also there with 10.2 rebounds, but also averages 14.8 points. Darius Garland only played in 20 games, and he is out for this game. So once again, that's good for the Bucks, but we know that this Cleveland Cavaliers team is pretty good without him. Evan Mobley, he's only playing 21 games, and he's also out. So that kind of hurts them on the big side. He averaged 16 points per game along with 10 rebounds, but he will be out for this one also. Karis LeVert here, he's playing 31 games, averaging 16 points a game. And then Max Strus, 12 points per game, mainly 3-point threat, I think. He's kind of – last time – I just want to look at the stats the last time the Cleveland Cavaliers played the Bucks, because I'm pretty sure they ended up they beat us by 40. I remember that because we kind of just skipped over that game because we're like, what happened? And this probably is what started everything on Adrian Griffin's side, giving up 135 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And so just looking at the box score, Donovan Mitchell had 31 and Jarrett Allen had 21. So that's basically, and then Nyang off the bench had 33 points. So that's probably a guy to look for the Cleveland Cavaliers off the bench there for them. I don't know. I don't know what to say about this game, Trage. Don't got our head coach. Don't know if we're going to have our new head coach. I guess it'll be interesting to see what the new Bucks looks like tonight.
Yeah, and going into this one, the Cavs are winners of 8 straight. They have won 8 straight games leading up into this one against the Bucks, including that win against the Bucks there as of late. So this is definitely going to be this is a tough matchup for the Bucks. And we were just talking the Bucks 30-13. They're sitting at second in the East, but you look at the Cavs' record on the season here, 26-15. They're right behind them. They are right behind the Bucks there in this race, and a loss here to the Cavs puts it in kind of panic mode there for Doc Rivers to get in there and fix this before it gets worse, because there's teams catching up, and that's what I think the Bucks have to watch out for here. Definitely going to be a big matchup there. Rogan, anything to add there for the Bucks-Cavs matchup here?
Yeah, not really much, guys. Obviously, we kind of just talked about it last time they played them. Got to watch out for the guards. Cavs got some pretty good guards. And kind of like Austin was saying, with it being the assistant coach's probably only game as head coach, I could see the Bucks playing really hard for the guy, like kind of, I don't know, making him look good, just because this, if they go out there and they play really poorly, I mean, I don't know how much teams would hold it against him, but it would definitely look better if the Bucks went out there and played phenomenal, and he could kind of point back to that and saying, we were going through a rough stretch there, new coach got fired, hiring a new coach, but I was able to kind of take the reins on this team and lead us to a good victory. So I could see the Bucks winning by a good margin tomorrow night and playing a good game.
Yeah, especially at home there. But you look at the Cavs, and they're a pretty good team on the road there, 11-7 on the season, so not a bad road team. The Cavs travel well, so this is going to be a big matchup here. I think Brook Lopez definitely going to have to show up in this one. I think the Bucks are definitely going to need a big showing out of Brook Lopez here. He's averaging 12.8 a game so far right now, but he's got to play big for the Bucks here down the stretch to right the ship. Well, we keep saying right the ship. It seems like they're at a losing record right now, but it just seems like with what we've seen from the Bucks as of late, they got a lot to fix, and there's a lot to fix here soon. So with that, anything else we got to add here for Wisconsin sports for the day? Nothing.
I think we
across the
covered
board,
everything,
nothing?
Trage.
We got to it all. The Badgers won the border battle against Minnesota. Can't wait for the second matchup there in that one. Also, we got into the Packers a lot today. We're going to get into the Packers more this offseason here. We got more Brewer talk coming up here soon. Brewers getting closer to spring training starting. So with that, this has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow. But until then, deuces.